Hello there, this is Goblin Maxer, and I wouldn't really call this big news. I'd call it more like medium big news. I think I've made one of the single worst suggestions in what I would say Minecraft suggestion history, and I will elaborate on that in a second. But the game plan for today is to basically dig a staircase back up, head home, and get the ender pearls, get the blaze powder, so I can finally enter the end. Finally. But to be honest, I thought I had a really good idea. I thought it was banging. I saw the recent update where they added the happy guest. They had the happy guest where when you first pick it up, it's not too happy. It actually looks quite miserable and decrepit and, well, I mean, it's literally dried up. It looks awful. It looks absolutely okay. I thought there was lava because the lighting just changed so suddenly, but it's like this. It's a stupid dynamic lighting. Sorry, I shouldn't be so negative. But regardless, I'm like, okay, the ghast is dried, and when you like place sponges in the nether, this is a fun fact in case you didn't already know. Sorry, I gotta cough real quick. I'm, I'm gonna cough away. If you heard that, I'm really sorry, but I'm probably not gonna edit that out. But you place wet sponges in the nether, they automatically dry out. If you've been smelting them in a furnace this entire time, then, well, I mean, I wouldn't focus on all the pointless hours you've wasted, but I mean, at least now you have a faster method. And then, of course, the classic, if you try to place water in the nether, right? It just evaporates instantly. So I was like, I notice a trend here, yet there's just so much, you know, there's so many inconsistencies. Like, for example, if you place water in a cauldron, if you place water in a cauldron in the nether, right? You would expect it to, of course, also evaporate, but do you know what it does? You know what it does? It doesn't. It does not. Okay, let me make that more clear, more distinct. It does not evaporate. It instead stays there. Like what? I I understand this may have come from, like, oh, well, players might need to use cauldrons in the nether. Who in their right mind is removing dye from leather boots or banners in the nether? Just make the portal, go to the overworld and do that stuff. Okay? I really have to, calm down here. But, I saw that that foresight that they may have had. Like, okay, maybe players do need to, do that in the nether. So I was like, well, I'm noticing this common theme of evaporation, I would call it, right? So what I'm thinking here is why don't we, extend this? Why don't we extend this sort of theme of evaporation? And that's where I got a couple of awesome ideas. First off, I did want to, in the Reddit post, I did iron out, like the inconsistency of like why does water in cauldron? You're literally putting it in a a large bucket of iron. You're literally putting it in one of the materials, like it's a metal. It conducts heat very well. Well, this is just very basic like engineering knowledge, and honestly, it's more so common knowledge. I think we may be surfacing here. But let's just put that aside real quick. Let's put that aside. How am I gonna find this? Uh, let's see. Compass. It's just directly south. I think I'm just gonna pillar up. Do I have a water bucket? No, I don't. But yeah, like they need to add well, they need to remove the cauldron. They need to remove the cauldron. And then what I said next, I think this was the most shocking thing. I think this is what people didn't like. I suggested, well, you can take the dried up gas and, undry it by throwing it in water. But it was dried out by the nether. That's the point I'm trying to get to. Why don't we have a feature where mobs just naturally get dried out by the nether and they have to uh, you know, essentially be covered in like fire protection or doused in water every once in a while to, prevent them from being dried up. But the cool part about that is that, they get dried up. I should have phrased that. I should have went around to it in a different way, but it's whatever. If a mob from the overworld is in the nether too long, then what happens is they shrivel up into like a little block form. Or even if, let's say, one of the ideas I had is, what if the squid, and it's like a hot biome, it's like a desert, or like even the beach, right? If a squid comes up onto the shore and it dries up, right? Well, no. If a squid comes onto the shore, instead of, you know, just dying like they usually do, they would do is they would dry up and they'd form this little block. And then you'd have a dry squid. And the dry squid would be used for many sorts of things, such as, well, many sorts of things. For one, it would be a really cool trophy that you could just place down, like a little plushie, and that would be super cool. And then another thing is you could also craft it into an ink sac. But I also, included in there that you could use it for eating as well. Ooh, I could tame my first wolf. Nice, 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 nice. Not you though, just you. I've noticed that I've been getting very lucky with the wolf tames lately. Like I've just been able to do it in one. I'm surprised that jump was possible. But back to the squid. Yeah, you could eat the dread squid, you could craft it into an ink sac, and they're talking about adding atmosphere. I feel like that would add a lot more atmosphere, honestly. As long as they didn't overdo it. Because then that would be just that would be a bit much, you see a bunch of dry squids on the that'd be that'd be a bit sad, I'd imagine. Alrighty. Bon voyage. But then that would also apply to all the other overworld mobs. Except you would have to, uh it wouldn't work on fish. There's too many fish for that to happen. Except maybe like puffer fish, I don't know. But basically you'd put a mob on a lead or use a minecart or whatever. You'd put them into the nether, and it would take about as long as, zombie villager curing, right? And after that certain amount of time passes, basically uh they shrivel up, they dry up into this sort of like one block form where it goes along with the theme of evaporation, like all the water inside of them has been evaporated to form this dried up like block like form of the mob. And from there you can mine it, pick it up. Of course, only some of them you could eat. Drying up a villager and eating it, I understand that's cannibalism, that's not good. And then there's also some other things which, like drying up dogs, right? You can see the problems, but very simply, it's just, add features, subtract features as we go. And, you could collect all the different, like little block pets of the Minecraft mobs. And we could have creeper plushies in the game. Like, that would be so cool. Uh, but of course, a lot of people saw like, oh, we're going to be taking the mobs and we're going to be drying like the hydration out of them. And a lot of people had pretty big concerns with that, especially, with live animals and stuff. And they were like, I'm not gonna strawman their argument. I'm not gonna do any of that because to be honest, I don't really get anything out of it. So what they said very bluntly was this seems needlessly cruel. This seems needlessly cruel. And I'm going to be honest, when you look at it from a realistic perspective, it is kind of messed up. It is kind of messed up. And to those that, view things as in like, well, what if this was in real life, I completely understand that. I gotta make sure I'm following this. I think this leads me over there. For those that, view it like, well, this is a bad example. Is it? I understand. However, I was trying to, I sort of envisioned it as more of a, cartoony sort of thing, as more of a cartoony feature, which could overall, you know, I just saw the plushy potential, and I was like, we gotta have this, and you could add little features, it would make mob transportation easier. Like, sure, it's a little bit cartoonishly violent, and this is kind of the point I don't want to lean too heavily on because it's really just like, like, oh well, we already have. I'll just get into the point. There are already like super messed up things you can do. And I'm not just talking about the machine where you got the sheep and then you got the lightning rod, you know. If you know, you know, I'm not explaining that further. But I'm talking like you can make farms where you can literally just take any source of freedom, any source of especially like the piglin roof farm, like the pig or no the sorry the hoglin roof farm. They just spawn in, they run over on the platform, and then they run into lava. Can you imagine how painful running into lava and dying in lava is? I think I saw this scale once where it's like, well, I don't remember the scale. I don't remember what it was called. Burning and dying in lava, pretty high on the scale, believe it or not. And, there's all sorts of other, like violent things, like piglins hunt hoglins. I can't imagine that's very painless for the hoglins. And this is sort of a point I don't want to make because it's like that sort of distinguishes itself as like a being in the realm of cartoon violence, because it's the little characters, fighting each other, you know, it's not really real. When something burns in lava, like it doesn't get submerged and then its skeleton pops up for a brief second to remind you of what you've done. It's very, cartoonish already. So if you were to see like, a dried up little thing on the side and it was going like, oh, oh, I'm in immense pain. I'm in horrible pain. Or at least it was making, like noises like that. You'd probably be like, oh my goodness. I really need I really need to reevaluate my life choices, or even worse, someone sees that and is like, you know what? I have a great idea. I'm gonna dehydrate an animal in real life. A living animal, I'm gonna dehydrate them in real life. And then all of a sudden, things get out of hand really quickly. Okay, let's get that ender pearl. Let's stop ranting a bit. Let me lock in first to figure out what I need here. The blaze powder. Well, I certainly need more, because I gotta get 11 eyes, but I only have 3 of this. So we're gonna have to go back into the nether, unfortunately. But let's see. I want to be able to craft a lodestone. Chiseled stone bricks. Very interesting. Do I have a stone cutter? Sorry for the sniffle. Well, I suppose I'll get the smelting, and then next episode, when this is all said and done, I will come back to it. But yeah, in conclusion on the Reddit thing, I don't think they're gonna add that to the game. If I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I don't think they're adding dehydrating mobs to the game. However, at the time I thought it was a good idea and I needed to explain myself a little because it's a little bit controversial, a little bit controversial. But honestly, I don't think anyone that replied to that or saw that is gonna see this video because I don't have that much reach. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for today. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Say hi, Luis. But yeah, that's all I got. See ya.